Hey everyone, and welcome to the PieCast, the Tom's Hardware PieCast for today, January 19th, 2021. We are, I'm Tom's Hardware Editor-in-Chief, Avram Pilch, and I'm joined, as always, by Raspberry Pi expert Ash Puckett, and today's special guest, Mike Horne, who runs Pi Wars in the UK, which is probably the world's leading Raspberry Pi competition. So, Mike, can you tell us, for those who aren't familiar, what Pi Wars is and how long it's been around?
Pi Wars is a non-destructive, challenge-based robotics competition, which is based around the Raspberry Pi. So anybody who enters has to have the Raspberry Pi at the core of the robot, and then we set them challenges, normally in person. We normally hold it in Cambridge, in the UK, but this year we're moving on to a virtual platform. Pi Wars has been around since 2014. And we've had, I think this is our sixth. I get confused because of the COVID situation, and we've had to postpone one of them and bring other ones in. And but yeah, it's been going for a good 6 or 7 years now.
Wow, fantastic. So, what do you mean when you say non-destructive? What does that mean?
So, Pi Wars it took off of a UK-based television series called Robot Wars, and Robot Wars are these big robots that they're very mechanical. They haven't got a microcomputer at the core. It's very microcontrollers and direct remote control, and they basically bash each other to bits within a perspex arena. Well, I say perspex, it's more like plexiglass, which is often experiences great explosions of bits and pieces coming towards the plexiglass.
That's great.
I can't remember. I think it's Battlebots over in the US.
Yeah, here in the US, it's called Battlebots.
Yep.
Yeah. So one day we were at a Cambridge Raspberry Jam, and Tim Richardson, who came up with the idea, basically said, "Wouldn't it be a good idea if we could do Robot Wars but with the Raspberry Pi?" And I thought, that sounds like a really promising idea. How on earth are we going to do that? And then it came out of there. And so all our challenges are to do with the flexibility of the robot, the agility of the robot, and we only have one robot versus robot challenge, which is called Pi Noon, where we mount balloons on the back of the robots, pins on the front of the robots, and they have to pop each other's balloons.
Now that sounds a little bit familiar. Someone's played the 64 before, haven't they? Yeah. That's pretty awesome. For anyone watching who's not familiar, that's a little mini game in Mario Kart, and that was a lot of hours wasted back in the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So you've been doing. So this will be like the 7th year of doing it.
Yep.
So what are some of are the robots controlled by humans, or are they autonomous?
It's a mixture. So one of the key overall challenges of Pi Wars is to develop a robot that is both autonomous and remote control. So we try and do it about half and half. So we have half autonomous challenges and half remote control challenges. And sometimes we have challenges that you can do either way, because we have quite a wide variety of people who are competing. So we go from young teams with schools all the way up to advanced roboteers who have been doing it for years, who really know their way around what they're doing. And then there's other categories in between that. So we try and do the challenges so that they are challenging for everybody in a different way.
So you said, is it all teams or some individuals?
It's a bit of both. Mostly it's teams, because putting together a robot and programming it to cope with all the different challenges can be quite difficult for solo roboteers to get their heads around. Some of the advanced ones tend to be soloists, but we have anything from whole classes of sort of 26 pupils all the way down to soloists.
What are some of the challenges that you have?
One we always have is the obstacle course, which is unseen until the day. And that includes buttons you've got to press, things you've got to move out the way. We've had a turntable that spins relatively fast that they've got to get over and round. We've had a treadmill. That was fun. And we've had things like rocks that you've got to dodge around. And we always end it off with a flipper at the end, a seesaw.
So are most of the robots wheeled robots, or some of them bipedal? How do they move around usually?
They are wheeled. We have had self-balancers, so just two wheels. Occasionally we've had walkers. They don't tend to do as well because some of the courses require speed, and one of the things that walkers aren't very good at is speed. So one of the challenges we used to have was a straight line speed test, which was just a drag race from one end to the other. And then we put a kink in it so that they had to actually follow a line around the course. But the walkers don't tend to do as well on that because they're just limited with the amount of power that they can be driven with.
Have you had?
So does every? Ash, you were saying?
Any of the bots that you've had, you were talking about some of them are wheeled. Have you had any with tread? Or is that not very efficient for trying to get through a course like that?
Oh, treads. We've had a few who have had treads. We've had ones that have done really, really well, and some which haven't. There's one guy, he's quite young. I think he's 16-ish, I think. He has a robot called Red Brick, which is tracked, and it goes like the devil. He just... he has trouble sort of getting it round corners because it tends to skid. And we've had other ones that have done really well. That doesn't tend to be as popular because some of the courses are a bit quite rough terrain, and they don't tend to do quite so well on those.
That's neat, though.
So, do all the robots compete in all the challenges, or is it kind of a mixture?
There's a mixture. Most of them compete in all of them. Occasionally we have teams which just say to us, we're in the beginner category, there's no way we can even think about how to do that one. And then others in the beginner category look at it and think, oh, I know how to do that. But yeah, I would say we do 7 challenges. Most do at least 6.
So is there a requirement that a certain model of Pi is used?
No, it can be any model. We've had everything from, where do we start? With 2014. So I think we've had Pi 2s. We've definitely had Pi 0s. We've had some real tiny little robots. And I think the year just gone that would have been in March, we were going to have some Pi 4s in there.
What are some of the restrictions that you have on what they can create?
Mostly it's size. So we have we base it off a piece of A4 paper, which is slightly bigger than the US letter size. And then there's a little bit extra on both sides just to cope with attachments, because a lot of our challenges require attachments. So we have target shooting ones where they attach a Nerf gun on top. So we let them go slightly over those size limits for those challenges. I think for Disaster Zone, which was the one we didn't do last year, we had a weight limit, but I can't remember what it was. It was like 9 kilos or something ridiculous, because we had a challenge on the obstacle course, which I won't say too much about because we might reuse it, where we were a bit worried about them going over this expanse.
So what are just some of the craziest robots you've seen, some of the strangest robots you've seen people create?
Oh, strangest. So one of the challenges we have is artistic merit, which means that you do end up with an awful lot of weird and wonderful robots. So one year we had a robot which was decorated with Ely Cathedral, a model on top of it, because they were based in Ely, which is it's near Newmarket in Suffolk. And the self balancer we had in 2018, that was intriguing because we thought that's never going to do very well, and it didn't. High noon, it was wobbling, and but we've had a fluffy one that looked like a brain with a perspex dome on it. That was fun. But we've had one which was a triangle, a triangle on the base, and then went up to a pyramid, which is called triangular. And that was interesting because I think it was the first time we had omni wheels make an appearance. And omni wheels basically mean that instead of going backwards and forwards and side to side, it can strafe anywhere it likes. So that was really impressive. That one did quite well, I seem to remember.
So one of the challenges, my 8-year-old son and I have been building a whole lot of Pi robots from kits, and we decided we want to build one from scratch. And one of the biggest challenges that we are finding is what's the best way to power the motors and the Pi? How do most of your competitors handle that, and what do you recommend?
There's a mixture. We have some people who just use a big pack of AA batteries, and you can get about 12 volts out of the biggest one, I think, and that does pretty well. Although they do have to keep swapping the batteries out as they go throughout the day. A lot of people on the other end of the scale use lipo batteries. Lipo batteries have obviously got the problem that if they get pierced, which when you're talking about pins on the end of robots, they just have to be a bit careful with how they shield them. They can explode. So we've only had once. We always say to them, if you're going to use a lipo, bring a charging bag because they're fireproof. And we've only had one instance where somebody said, I don't think it should be smoking. I'm going to take it outside.
Only one. That's a good record.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Do any of them use 18650 batteries?
Yes, some of them do. That's sort of a happy medium because you can get quite a lot of power out of them.
Yeah, there was a thing recently. I'm curious your opinion on this. There was a last week or the week before, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which is a government agency here in the U.S., issued a warning to consumers saying, be careful about buying 18650 batteries because they're a fire hazard. On the other hand, people have been using them in robots for years, and I bought kits that came with them. Do you see anything kind of inherently dangerous about them?
I think any power source has to be treated with respect. Even normal AA batteries leak, and you can get a nasty burn off them if you touch where they've leaked. I think it's just a case of just always read up on them and make sure that you know how they work. For instance, lipos, I always swore that I would never touch them because if you overcharge them or undercharge them, they get damaged, and you don't want to damage lipo. But somebody basically taught me how to treat them with respect and always keep them at a certain charge level and that sort of thing. So I think if you read up on the 18650s, then I think you're fine with them. Yeah.
Just don't do what my son did a few months ago when he put them in backwards in the battery holder, and then he said, Dad, why is there steam coming out of this board? And
yeah,
steam, it's smoke. So I don't let him put in the batteries anymore. But yeah, I mean, so are they able to, is there a particular motor driver or hat that they use that is common?
We get a lot of mixture in the hats and the boards that they use. So some people use the Thunderborg, which is from Pyborg, because it can give out quite a lot of amps per channel. There's a couple of other ones from there as well, but that's the one that's become popular. There's the Redboard Plus, which is from is an independent maker who's basically come up with this really fantastic motor controller board, and a lot of people are using those now. Some people have got away with using the one that comes with the EduKit, which is it's tiny, it's about that big. But they struggle with power distribution, so actually getting enough power to the motors to make them go at a decent speed and decent torque. What else do they use? There's some Fortronics ones like the PyCon Zero, not PyCon Zero. Do I mean PyCon Zero? It's a little one. It's about the size of the Zero, but that is really good because you can run DC motors and servos all off the same board, and it powers the Pi, I think.
Yeah, I mean I think that's the issue. Is like I was experiencing just yesterday is trying to find a way to power both the Pi and the board off of a single power source, because a lot of them recommend that you have two different batteries, which is kind of a nightmare. What do you think?
Yeah.
Have you dealt with this?
Not too much personally.
Yeah, it's difficult because, for instance, some motorboards just won't power the Pi from a power source, but some will. I think it's useful to sort of start from the position of needing to power both the Pi and the motors separately, because then you find out why that's a good thing. Because the motors pull so much current when you stall them that it can brown out the Pi. And then the SD card gets corrupted, and you run into all the other problems. However, a lot of the boards that you can get do power both. So I think the Thunderbolt does, and I know the Red Robotics one does. Red board. Yeah, you just got to realise that there's benefits and there's disadvantages to both ways of doing it.
So normally you do this show in person, correct? How are you handling it now in the age of COVID?
We basically decided to double down with it. We're doing a conference, which is this weekend, which is just going to be talks. And then we've got the main competition, which is coming up also. And we've defined an arena that they have to build themselves. So about 1.5 meters square. And then they fill that with blocks and different things, different challenges that they've got to do. And we just basically specify it really, really tightly so that they should, in theory, end up with exactly the same challenge, but on their kitchen floors.
That's
wow.
Great.
So who are these events open to?
Anybody and everybody. We have people from all around the world.
So so if someone wants to attend the conference this weekend, how would they do it?
If they go to piwars.org, there's a big blue button that tells you how to get tickets. The tickets are completely free, but you do need a ticket to get in. And we're using a platform called Hopin, which is a conference platform that you can broadcast from various different places. And so they can just go onto there, press the button, and get the tickets.
Wow, fantastic. So what can folks look forward to at this weekend's event?
We've got a lot of talks on, obviously, robotics, and we've got panels as well. So we've got, there's basically a long form and a short form that's happening at the same time. So on the main stage, we've got shorter talks that have been pre-recorded, and then we'll have some Q&As after each talk with the people who did the talks. At the same time, we've got sessions going on which are going to be completely live, and people will be able to interact with it as they go. There's everything from how to design your own controller board to I've got into Pi Wars. What do I do now? And there's a talk on how to approach the different challenges, just in case people are still struggling. But there's some general talks as well. There's different groups. There's I think they're called UK Mars, which is an open source robot. They're coming along to do a talk. And yeah, it's mostly Raspberry Pi based, but there's a couple of microbit bits in there just for depending on which platform you want to use.
Wow. Fantastic. And so if folks want to get involved in the next competition, how would they do that?
Because it's so close, you can't get into it now. But if you go to pirewars.org and then look for the mailing list and join that, we basically let people know when you can apply to come in, because we normally have more applications to get in than we have places to let people in.
When is the next competition?
Well, depending on the COVID situation, it might be in person. It just depends on how quickly the vaccination timetable works out. It's likely to be March 2022. So it's quite a way off. But the application process starts in September. So, as I say, if the vaccinations haven't quite hit in September, then we're a bit stuck, because then you don't know whether you can do it in person or not. Virtual, online and virtual is okay, but you do miss the thrill of the actual weekend where everybody gets together.
Great. It seems like it would be awesome to attend in person and just see all those robots and all those creators. Now I kind of want to plan my trip for March just to see it. Sounds exciting. So I have to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests, which is, how many Raspberry Pis do you have?
I think I'm up to about 30.
Oh, 30. So I think with our leader so far, Les with 40. I'm hovering around 20, 21, something like that. I kind of lost count. And Ash, where are you these days?
10 to 15, but I got a couple of Pi Zeros recently, and they're pretty easy to get a lot of.
Yeah, no joke. I used to when before pandemic times, it was we had this store around here called Micro Center that was really inexpensive. They still exist. I just don't go there because it's the pandemic, but really, really inexpensive to buy Raspberry Pi Zero Ws. At one point, they were selling them for $5 for the W. So every time, but they only let you buy one at a time. So I just go there periodically and buy one. And then if I knew someone who I wanted to start with Raspberry Pi, I just give them one. Or 1 year, I just gave them out as like holiday cards to my coworkers. I just like put a video greeting on each one, and for each person, I gave it to them. And you have to set this up and boot it to find out what I said. So that was my effort to spread the word. So Ash, a lot has happened this week while we were busy paying attention to CES. A lot of things happened in the Pi world. So what are some of the highlights for you?
So we have received our first update to Raspberry Pi OS for 2021, and I'm going to pull up the release notes for anyone who wants to take a peek at them. And for anybody listening, you can find these official release notes on the Raspberry Pi website. But I thought I'd give just an overview of what's changed to get an idea of, what to expect. So first, there have been a few bugs fixed like you would expect, just little things that they're bugs. There's been some language updates. There have been some Epson printer drivers. But the biggest news is that Adobe has completely shelved Flash. You've probably seen the pop-ups in Chrome all through the month of December. Flash has bit the dust. They're not going to support it anymore, and it's been completely nixed from Raspberry Pi OS. And that actually has a few implications that you wouldn't expect. Excuse me, I have a tech support helping me here. Scratch 2 is used by Scratch 2 uses Flash, and so they had to take it out. So when you download Raspberry Pi OS, you're not going to have that anymore. In addition to Scratch, you could find Flash in a few other applications. I know that it was common for users to use the Flash plugin with Chromium. So now when you get Chromium, it doesn't have the Flash plugin. That said, us makers, we like to emulate things. We like to run old software, old retro games. I personally have a ton of Flash games I'd like to somehow preserve because, how much of us wasted, I keep saying wasted time. It's fun to waste time. How many of us spent time playing games on Newgrounds, Flash games, things like that. So what I wanted to know is how can you get Flash on the Raspberry Pi going forward? And there's a couple of options. The first one is less ideal, but it's still technically an option, and that would be not to update your Raspberry Pi. So if you haven't updated it yet and want to keep using Flash as it is, don't update your Pi. This should be okay if you're using it offline or just a local network that's not connected to the internet. If your Pi is connected to the internet, though, that will raise some security concerns. You're going to open yourself to more security vulnerabilities as time goes on. So if you want to keep using Flash and you choose not to update, proceed with caution. Your other option would be to manually install Flash. Because it's not supported anymore, your mileage may vary, but there are a few options as far as manual installation goes. I know that I did a little research this morning. I know there's an open source implementation of Flash for Linux called Gnash, spelled Gnash, and you can use it to play some SWF files. Again, that's not a guarantee, but look it up. It might be what you need if you wanted to keep using Flash. Flash is still around. It's just not going to get any new updates. It's not coming pre-installed on anything else anymore. So what do you guys think? Do you think that you're going to notice the absence of Flash, not just on the Raspberry Pi, but on the internet and computers in general?
Not at this point.
No.
I think there's still going to be a few sites out there where you're going to think, why is there nothing on the screen? Oh, Flash.
Yeah, it's like something that was just so prevalent for so many years, and when Flash first started to become like, it slowly started to develop a very negative reputation. I think Apple was one of the first to say we're dropping Flash and we think Flash is bad. And there was a time when I think a lot of like streaming services still required Flash, and I think Apple dropping Flash support from, I think, at least its mobile browser really helped push it out of the way. And then HTML5 came along, and so now there's like no site that requires Flash for watching video, and there might be some old games, but unfortunately, like a lot of things, it is now a relic of the past. I guess you can't, you can't go on the internet with, you can't leave old stuff on the internet. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I wonder what this does to the Wayback Machine. Can you still do Flash on the Wayback Machine?
I'll tell you what I do for anybody who's watching, because there's a lot of Flash animations that I grew up watching throughout the 2000s. There are applications you can download to watch old Flash files, and sometimes you can find downloads of these animations in games on forums and stuff like that. So if you can't actually view it in your browser or on the Wayback Machine, you can sometimes play them locally on your computer.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of past time. So were there any other big developments this week?
Other than that, let's see. I know they added some Epson drivers. So if you're printing, you've got that. I think the Linux kernel was updated to 5.4.83. And like I said, there were some language updates, but I don't think we speak Italian or Norwegian. But for those who do, there have been some translation updates. And that's about it from this update.
Yeah. So before we go, I wanted to show something quick that I've been working on. Just one of my little toys here. So this is, I think we've talked about some of their stuff before, but I want to show everyone. This is a Pimoroni Breakout Garden that I just got. Pimoroni makes these, and what's cool about them is you have all these little breakout boards that you can buy for the hat, and they make these in different configurations. One's for the zero, and ones that only have I2C connectors. This one has both I2C and SPI connectors, and then you can buy a whole bunch of little boards from them that pop right in. So this is so simple to set up. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it's so simple to set up. It's simple enough to set up that my 8-year-old son put it together by himself without my help. So I was working last week when these came in the mail from Pimoroni, or from the UK, and he said he wanted to play with them. I'm like, listen, I'm still working. So he said, oh, let me try it. So he put on the hat, he installed the software. His main complaint was he said he had to go to GitHub to find the instructions, which, that's where you find a lot of instructions. So this right here, I don't know if it's easy to see with the lighting, is we have on here an accelerometer, and this is actually a compass. And when you move the device, you can. Oh, it's really hard to see because of the lighting in here. There's actually a little ball that moves around depending on how you've moved it and changes the color, like a little compass. Other things that we have on other boards that we put on here, and there's like an ecosystem of I think about 24 boards. This is a 240 by 240 screen. This here is less as shown before, is an RGB potentiometer. This is a time of flight sensor, which is good for precise distance, and this is our motion sensor. And they have different motion sensors with different amounts of degrees of freedom. They also have a thermal camera. They have a haptic buzzer. They have GPS. So a lot of really cool things, and it's just so easy because you just pop these in, and then you download the library from GitHub, and you're up and running, and can have a lot of different sensors. There's also breakout sensors or motors running off of this simple board. So there's a lot of kits that are out there there's some other kits that are out there to make it easy to plug in little boards. Like I know like Stemma QT I think is another example of something like that. But I really like the Breakout Garden. It's a lot of fun and really, really, really easy.
What modules does it come with, or did you pick those out yourself?
It doesn't come with any. You buy a hat, of which there's like 5 different possible hats, because there's one there's this one here, which I think is the best general purpose one because it has both I2C and SPI, and I think this is around 12 or 13 pounds or dollars, depending where you get it. And then the individual modules range from like $5 to about like $55 for the thermal camera. Someone has a question. Blogged and asked, do they have cables so you can position the sensors?
Good question.
Good question. So I don't think that there are cables that will go from these inputs. The boards themselves just pop right in and out. What you can do is each of these boards could actually function without the Breakout Garden, because if you pull it out, there's holes in the bottom, pinholes, and they come with pins. So if you wanted to, you could solder on pins, and you could use these independently of the Breakout Garden and do it that way. So any of these things, if you wanted to do soldering to it, you could use them separately. But as far as using them within here, I don't think that there's an extension cable. I haven't seen one anyway. I could be wrong. To do this. What I like about this though is it's really easy mounting. So let's say you were putting this on top of a robot or something, you'd have it nicely mounted, which is a big problem with a lot of breakout boards. Like where are you gonna put them? You're gonna put them in a breadboard, you're gonna solder them to a proto board or whatever. These stay in really nicely once you pop them in. So anyway, that was just a quick look at the Pimoroni Breakout Garden, which you can get in various places, including Pimoroni.com. I mean, blogged in. Maybe there's a way of doing it that I don't know about. This is a very interesting question. We do know the folks at Pimoroni, and I will ask them. Tune in next week and ask, and I will. If I know when I find out the answer, I'll let you know. There's probably some hack to do it. I don't know if there's an official way to do it. It's a really good idea though. So anyway, folks, I just want to thank our special guest, Mike Horne from Pi Wars. If folks want to learn more about Pi Wars, where's the best place to go?
Go to piwars.org. All the information's on there.
Fantastic. Thanks as always to all of you who watch and listen. We are here every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. British time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time in the US. And you can find us always on youtube.com/TomsHardware. Hit subscribe there, please. And wherever podcasts are available. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.